What's your lemonade stand story?
And he was like, YouTube's going to be the next big thing, Devin. Like, you need to get on that. You need to get on it early. And I'm like,
And all of us, we all go through our own trials, our own level of stuff.
Sure hope this works out. Otherwise, this will be a huge waste of time.
I mean, what else is it all about other than just taking risks and continuing to try and grow and hopefully get better and better at making things?
Most of the billion-dollar brands you've seen were started by people that were just solving a problem for themselves.
We're telling lemonade stand stories from some of the world's top creators, makers, and go-getters.
We're rolling right now.
Hey,
We're having fun. We're rolling.
Yeah.
Hey guys, this podcast today is sponsored by Yalla, a task management and team collaboration software that we use at Lemonade Stand. We use Yalla to keep all of our team members organized, wherever they are. In fact, we used it to plan and organize this podcast. Visit yalla.team, that's YALLA.team, and try it for free. We also have a special offer for all listeners of this podcast. Use promo code LEMONADE and get a lifetime 25% off if you upgrade. What is going on, guys? This is Charan Prabhakar with the Lemonade Stand Stories podcast, and I'm here with a very delightful fellow. His name is Benton Crane, who is the CEO of Harmon Brothers. And it's funny, we've been playing how do you guys all know each other and what's the connection? Because I knew Daniel Harmon, I knew Jeff, and I knew Neil, but I'm like, where does Benton fall in all of this? Well, they're cousins, as it turns out, and so that's very exciting. So you grew up in Idaho, and then you also were in Washington, D.C., you were telling me.
So I spent the first few years of my life in Idaho.
Okay.
My parents, when they got married, they bought a little farm, a little 200 acres in southern Idaho.
Yeah.
But the 1980s and 90s were like, in the world of family farming, the mantra was like, grow big or go broke.
Okay.
That's when like farming got super industrialized and you had to buy huge infrastructure and expensive tractors and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And so most of the family farms were going broke at that time. And my parents saw the writing on the wall. And so my dad decided he needed to go to college. So we moved to Utah.
Okay.
My dad studied at BYU. This was when I was about 7 years old, I think.
Okay.
And we thought that would be a 4-year stop
where
my dad would go to school and then we'd move on to whatever was next. But it ended up becoming home.
Yeah.
And I was pretty much raised in Orem, Utah.
Oh, nice. So were you an Orem Tiger? Did you go to Orem High? Or?
Both an Orem Tiger and a Timpanogos Timberwolf. So
okay. All right.
Timpanogos was the new high school at the time, and it didn't have any shop classes. And I was like a total shop geek. I loved auto shop, wood shop, metal shop. So I had to go to Orem High to get those classes. And so it was an A-day, B-day schedule. So I'd go every other day to either school.
No way. Okay. I don't mean to age you. What year did you graduate, though?
Well, I'm actually a dropout. Okay. I made it through my junior year.
Perfect.
And then I dropped out
to
pursue my career in automotive repair. I started out as a repair technician because I had this deep, deep passion for cars that started when I was like 10 years old.
Dude, I freaking love this story so much because just from automotive repair to what you're doing right now is just so wild. So yeah, walk me through. You left high school. You're like, hey, I want to go into automotive repair and I love what I'm doing. So what happened after that?
I was like halfway through my junior year in high school and I came home from school and I was complaining to my dad. I was like, Dad, this feels like daycare for teenagers.
Because it is.
We're just there wasting time, not getting anything out of this. And my dad's response shocked me because, everyone was like, oh, stay in school. You got to stay in school to, or else you'll become a nobody or whatever. And so I'm complaining to my dad and he goes, so leave.
No way.
And I was like, wait, say what? He's like, if you got a problem with it, do something about it. And I was like that idea had never even entered my mind.
Sure.
So I spent the second half of my junior year figuring out like, okay, well, if I was to leave, what would I do? And so I left after my junior year, went and enrolled at what the time was called UVSC, Utah Valley State College, because they had a great automotive repair program. It's now called UVU.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just dove in headfirst, full-time into automotive repair. And that first year of school there at UVSC, I showed up to class one day and my professor was like, hey, we're holding this competition. Why don't you go join it and you don't have to come to class today?
Okay.
I was like, okay, cool. Sounds fine. So I went to this little competition. You'd go from station to station and fix different parts of the car and try to diagnose it and that sort of thing. And it was just kind of like this fun experience for me.
Yeah.
And the next day I come and my professor's like, hey, you won. Congratulations. Here's a set of screwdrivers. They were like cheap screwdrivers from like Harbor Freight or something. And he's like, we're going to send you to Salt Lake City so you can compete at the state level.
So
like, cool.
What are you repairing? Like what's the
So there's 10 stations
and
each station has a theme. So you'll have an engine theme, a transmission theme, brakes and suspension, electronics, so on and so forth.
Okay.
And so each station you spend like a half hour there. So you show up and there's a judge there watching you and they hand you this paper that basically says, okay, here's what you're dealing with. You've got to dive in, you've got to figure it out and then make the repair within your 30 minutes or whatever. Yeah. So you just jump from station to station like that. So I went up to Salt Lake, went to the state competition, same thing, just on a bigger scale.
Sure.
And that night I found out I won that one too.
No way.
And they said, we're going to send you to Kansas City, Missouri so you can compete in nationals. And I'm like, cool. I'd never been on an airplane at this point.
Oh my gosh, this is crazy. Okay, so you've never even been on an airplane and now you're going to go compete in nationals in some sort of automotive repair competition.
Right.
Continue. This is so fascinating.
My airplane ride, I get an aisle seat and there's these two girls next to me. They were going to compete in something else, photography or something. And apparently I'm like peering over their laps trying to see out the window because I'm so excited by my flight, right? And the girl in the window seat was like, do you want my seat? and like, I was shameless. I was just like, could I? So she traded me seats so I could see out the window.
Did you let them know like, hey, you've never been on a plane before?
Yeah. Okay. I was like, this is my first flight. I'm like so excited.
Yeah.
And so I go out to Kansas City. We have the competition out there. Once again, same thing, just bigger scale, people coming from all over the country.
In this competition, like, are you timed to do some certain things? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like 30 minutes per station, if my memory serves correct. It's been a lot of years.
Cool.
So the clock's running. There's a judge there watching you. And so you're trying to say, okay, what's the problem? I got to diagnose it. Now I got to solve it and get everything done in that amount of time. Yeah. And I move on to the next station.
Yeah.
So I end up taking second place in the nation.
Wow.
In automotive repair. And
how old are you? You're probably like what, 17, 18?
I'm 18.
You're 18.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this would have been my senior year of high school.
Great. Yeah.
So that ended up being like this amazing launching pad for my career that like I look back and I'm so grateful to my dad for telling me to drop out of high school.
Yeah, it's
because
amazing.
he basically kind of gave me permission to like pursue something that I was deeply passionate about. And that passion translated into real success in that field that I ended up with scholarship offers, job offers, like all sorts of stuff that just launched me into my career. I didn't end up staying in that career long term. I actually got bored with it pretty quick and
you're like, I want to get out of here.
Yeah, I needed to move on to something else.
Yeah.
But it gave me so much confidence to just know like it's totally fine to pursue a path that's different from everyone else's.
Yeah.
And it's totally fine to pursue something that you're deeply passionate about.
Dude, that was so amazing because your dad like basically gave you the permission to have your own voice. And whether your voice was like, hey, my voice is going to be in auto mechanics. And you did, and you empowered yourself and you made it happen and like you won like huge things. That's incredible. Because I feel like sometimes it's like, I know I've had my own parents, like we have some friends that are another Indian family, and their daughter and me are the same age. And of course I had like this mad crush on her, which is funny because we're still really freaking friends, but back in the day, and she used to play the violin. So my parents were like, oh, I guess you need to play the violin. I'm like, wait, do I? I didn't. I mean, I know she does, but do I need to play? I'm like, okay, I guess. And I hated it. I hated the violin. Sorry, violinist. I know it's a wonderful instrument. I just did not have the passion for it. But it was interesting.
The passion for the girl. I had the passion for violin.
Yeah, so it was like a double passion. I don't know. It was an interesting thing. But it's, I love that you had that experience and you were able to like empower yourself, because now you're like, okay, my next venture, I'm gonna do something that is gonna be more exciting. So what was the next thing that happened after you left?
So
repair?
I quickly got bored with that industry. Like it's an industry that has some problems in that, like, it's very low trust. Like, people don't trust mechanics. So no matter how good I was, no matter how fast I was, no matter how honest I was, people just hated me. Like, your car's broke down, you're mad at your mechanic, period. And so I would go home from work every day. Like, I liked my work, but I hated the way that, people perceived me and the way that I felt, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I knew, okay, I got to go find something else. So I went back to school. I went to BYU, and I thought, hey, I'm really good at auto repair. I'm going to study mechanical engineering. I started with calculus, and it like kicked my butt. I took calculus 1 3 times. The first time I failed it.
Yeah.
The second time I got a C. And then the third time I got a B+.
Do you remember who your calculus professor was?
I don't.
Okay, because I took calculus at BYU as well. I know.
You probably did a lot better than I did.
No, I didn't. I actually did pretty well, but I don't remember any of it. So it's one of those
I
things.
actually remember it surprisingly well. I guess having gone through it 3 times,
Yes.
I kind of drilled it into me, pretty deeply. But so I could see, like, okay, this is going to be a rough road if I'm going to become a mechanical engineer, because, man, these like really hard advanced math classes, and I'm getting my butt kicked on calculus 1.
Mm-hmm.
So I started looking at other options, and I took Econ 101.
Mm-hmm.
And most people hate that class.
Yeah, Dr. Curl, I remember. Yeah,
mine was.
it might have been different.
Mine was Dr. Pope.
Okay. Okay.
I think they were both. They both had reputations.
Oh yeah. Of course.
Most people hated
Econ.
But something lit up inside me. Like,
really?
Yes, it like that passion that I had for cars. All of a sudden, it was reignited, and I started consuming just book after book after book about economics, monetary theory, all this stuff. Like, it was just
loved it.
Yeah, the fire reignited inside of me. So I studied economics, and I graduated right as the 07-08 collapse hit.
Mm-hmm.
And so I flew all over the country doing job interviews, and I got 2 offers, both in Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm.
So I started my career at the U.S. Census Bureau, working as a statistician, which that was a soul-sucking job.
Yeah, that sounds soul-sucking.
Yeah, being a government bureaucrat is not. It's not exciting.
Yeah, it's
fast-paced.
It's not delightful.
No. So I was grateful to have a job. I was grateful to have an income. I got married, and so I was, trying to provide for my wife and our soon-to-be-born first daughter. So I was very grateful for that, but I was not happy in that role, and so I was actively searching for what would be next. And so I enrolled at Johns Hopkins University in a Master's of Economics program, and it was while I was there that a recruiter from Deloitte came to the school, and I met this recruiter from Deloitte. I got hired at Deloitte to go work in the intelligence community, which is the various 3-letter agencies in Washington, D.C. So I was a data analyst, spent my days, with my nose in spreadsheets. And at the same time, I was staying in touch with Jeff Harmon, who's my cousin. We were roommates at BYU, close friends. He was back at Orabrush pioneering YouTube marketing.
Yeah.
And I could see what he was doing was super special. And so I was following it very closely, and I could tell this was something big. And after a couple of years, one day we were on the phone, and he told me, he said, there's this company called Poo-Pourri. It's this weird poop spray, but it works. He's like, I tested it out. It works.
Yeah, of course he would. Yeah.
He's like, they want me to come do what I did for Orabrush, but do it for Poo-Pourri. He's like, I don't know if I want to, but I'm thinking about it. I'm actually considering this. And I was like, well, what do you need to make it work? And so he kind of takes me through, okay, well, here are the roles that I need. And one of the roles was I need a data guy because he had discovered at Orabrush that creativity is actually much better when it's informed by data. And I'm like, I'm a data guy. I'll join you.
Yeah.
And he was like, wait, serious? You would?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I will. And it was one of those moments where like I had this just moment of clarity in my head of like,
like
seize this, like take this opportunity. And so I told him right there and then, like, yeah, sign me up. I'll move my family across the country, join you guys. And he was like, oh, well, okay, let me get back to you. So he went and talked to Neil, talked to Daniel, and ultimately got the Poo-Pourri contract. So the four of us, they left Orabrush, I left Deloitte, and we formed what is now Harmon Brothers.
Harmon Brothers.
And Poo-Pourri was that first campaign.
It's so funny because like Devin Graham's a good friend of mine.
Yeah, he was a college roommate too.
He was a college roommate.
Yep.
I wonder if where did you guys live in college? Where were you guys at?
It was what was that called? I think they've even changed the name of it now. It was right on
Freedom Boulevard? Or...
No, it was right on Canyon Road.
Okay.
Right across the street from the freshman dorms. What are they? Is it Helaman Halls?
Yeah, Helaman Halls is over there.
So
I think.
Just across the street to the west.
Okay.
Is this little apartment complex. It used to be called like Canyon, I forget the name of it.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, Jeff and Devin and I were roommates.
That's so funny. Yeah.
In that little apartment complex.
Yeah, because Devin, he was helping color correct a commercial that I had produced back in 2008, and he had barely was testing out YouTube, not a ton. And he had seen some success from it because he wanted to be like a legit filmmaker, DP, that type of thing, right? And then Jeff was like, "Hey, come shoot this Orabrush video for us," and then the rest is history, right? But it's so interesting to see your guys' beginnings because in a weird way, I felt like I was peripherally watching some of those things kind of take place. So, okay, let's go back to Poo-Pourri. You, the four of you, so Neil, Jeff, Daniel, and you, formed this little entity. I guess was that the Harmon Brothers at the time? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we didn't intend at the time to become an agency.
Okay.
Like we thought we were just doing this project for Poo-Pourri.
Poo-Pourri.
Right. And so even the name was almost accidental. It was like when Poo-Pourri was ready to write a check, they asked Neil and Jeff like, "Hey, who do we write it to?" Yeah. And they kind of look at each other like they jump on the internet, register Harmon Brothers LLC. Yeah. And they're like, just write it to Harmon Brothers LLC. We'll change the name later. Yeah. But then, of course, the campaign blew up, got covered by media, and the media kept citing Harmon Brothers as the agency. Yeah. And so I remember, Jeff kind of being like, well, I guess we're an agency and we're Harmon Brothers. Yeah.
Dude, that's so amazing. I love that. And so you were the data guy then. Uh-huh. You originally started off the data guy. Yep. And what were the roles of everyone at the time? Yeah, so let's see. I mean, we all wore tons of hats, right?
Of course. When you're in brand new startup mode, everybody is just doing all sorts of stuff. So Neil is the technical guy of the bunch. So anything that had to be programmed, built, coded, that was Neil. Okay. I think if my memory serves correctly, Jeff kind of took the creative director role, where he was kind of overseeing the big vision of it. I don't think Daniel directed that first one. I believe Joel Ackerman directed that first one. We hired Joel as both a writer and a director. Yeah. So I actually don't remember exactly what Daniel's role was in that one, but he had lots of roles. Everyone's wearing lots of hats. Yeah, it's like that's what happens, right? When you're making movies and all that stuff. And it's interesting because like you guys went right from Poo-Pourri, I feel, to Squatty Potty. It was actually a year. Oh, was it a year? Yeah. So right after Poo-Pourri, we co-founded VidAngel. Okay. And we all pushed pretty hard on VidAngel for several months. So Poo-Pourri it was fall of 2013. We launched VidAngel very end of 2013, beginning of 2014. So those first several months in 2014, we were all just heads down, focused on VidAngel. Mm. We got to a point, it was like end of summer, if my memory serves correctly, where we realized, okay, what we've built needs to be rebuilt. Like, you know how it is when you're starting something
Sure.
new, like the first tries at it.
Yeah, the first iteration is always
They're always
like
crap.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't even get
Okay.
my wife to use our product. She was like, I hate this
Yeah,
thing.
this is the worst. What are you doing? Yeah. Yeah, it's hilarious.
So when that happened, Neil went heads down on rebuilding it. You know,
Okay.
he was the tech guy, which meant Daniel, Jeff, and I had free time where instead of focusing on marketing VidAngel, we were like, we need to go get some side projects to keep food on the table.
Right.
And so that's when we went out, started pounding the pavements, you know, saying, hey, you know, we're the guys who did Poo-Pourri. Need some help with your marketing. We got a couple of crappy little, you know, side jobs, but 2 jobs ended up really standing out. One was the world record nativity for the Radiant Foundation.
Okay.
That was the one that we did with Devin Graham was a part of it. All the big YouTubers at the time, David Archuleta, Peter Hollins. We broke the world record for the world's largest nativity, making this Christmas music video. Super cool project, super fun. Then that snowballed into Squatty Potty, which then snowballed into Purple.
Okay.
And I think it was between Squatty Potty and Purple when we realized, like, we've got something special here going on.
For sure.
Because we had planned to just go back and turn our focus back to VidAngel. But when we realized that we had something special going on, Daniel and I decided we're going to go full-time, heads down on building the agency.
And then Jeff can go over to VidAngel.
Yeah, Jeff stayed with us through, I believe it was through Purple. And then he went back full-time with Neil building VidAngel. And I remember we had a conversation at some point where we were like, one of these is bound to fail. So at least we're hedging our bets.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And they both didn't fail. They both succeeded. So fast forward, I guess we're how many years?
Oh man,
coming up on 9 years, I guess.
9 years, yeah.
And both companies are alive and well and thriving and growing.
And that's not always a story that you would hear from other companies, you know. But it's so interesting that this is kind of happening. And you know, because of my work as an actor and stuff, I've had the opportunity to work on several of your projects. I think you guys did. I don't know. I'm trying to remember which agency did what. I think Harmon Brothers were responsible for ClickFunnels. Did you guys do some of the ClickFunnels stuff?
Yep.
You know, Russell's a buddy of mine.
Yep.
So
awesome guy.
Yeah, he's an awesome guy, and we've been buddies for since 2013. So it was cool to work on that, and then. You know, and Todd's a really good friend of mine. I know he's directed some of the stuff for
we had him direct some stuff.
Oh my gosh, what was the one with Lisa Valentine Clark? I forgot the name.
Chatbooks.
Chatbooks.
Yeah, that was awesome.
That was such a fun. That was such a fun thing. But it's interesting to see the incredible dent that you've made. You know, you guys are all grew up in a farm in Idaho, and yet you've created an agency that rivals the world, I would say, in terms of viral commercials and videos and marketing, that people are looking to you hey, how did you guys do it? And what did you do? Why would you say Harmon Brothers succeeded? Because in a way, I feel like you guys really paved the way for a lot of other agencies. And I feel like a lot of other agencies started trying to follow your model. So what was it about you guys that were able to kind of nail down that niche and make it succeed?
So I would describe that as kind of if you follow all the way back to what was the Genesis event that began this all. I actually think the Genesis event happened at Orabrush. And not a lot of people know this story, but Orabrush had its success by selling on YouTube. And at the time, no one else was selling on YouTube. Right, YouTube previously had been share your cat videos or whatever.
Yes, it's cat video galore, right? Or panda sneezing or something like that.
It's where viral videos lived, right? Google buys it, and Google intends to turn it into an advertising platform. But initially, they were having a really hard time doing that. None of the brands wanted to be on
YouTube,
on this quirky little thing, you know, called YouTube. And when Jeff and Devin shot that original Orabrush ad.
And that was the one with Austin, right?
Yep, Austin starred in it.
Yeah.
That was like if my memory serves correctly, it was like a 2.5 minute ad, which was a total oddball length. You know, normally you have your 30-second spots, your 60-second spots, or
15 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you jump all the way up to infomercial spots, which are like 20, 30 minutes long, right? So 2.5 minutes was this total oddball. And Jeff started showing it to people, test audiences, and he was getting the same piece of feedback from everyone, myself included. We were all saying, what are you going to do with a 2.5 minute ad?
Yeah.
Where are you going to put this thing? You've got to make it 30 seconds. And Jeff dug in his heels and he was like, no, I need 2.5 minutes to properly tell this story and to properly sell this product.
Yeah.
So he reached out to the YouTube team and he said, guys, can you give me a skip ad button so that the people who want to watch my 2.5 minute ad can, but the people who are not interested and want to skip it can just hit the skip button and move on to their video.
Yeah.
And YouTube, they were in startup mode, so they were like, yeah, we'll try anything.
Yeah.
So they built the skip ad button and launched it with that Aura Brush
No way.
campaign.
I did not know that. Yeah.
Yeah, like not many people know this.
So
but
the whole skip ad button came because of Aura Brush's video, because
Correct.
of Jeff's? No way.
Correct.
Wow.
So now, at the time, no one, not even Jeff, not YouTube, nobody knew how impactful that would be on the whole advertising industry. But now we're, 14, 15 years removed from that. We can look back and see the impact. And what happened at that moment was that there was a massive shift from advertisers believing their audience was captive.
Yeah.
And so advertisers would force feed the audience whatever crap they wanted to.
Right. Yeah.
You remember how painful commercial breaks were?
Yeah. They were the worst.
Oh, terrible.
Yeah.
And
That's why TiVo was so amazing.
Yeah.
Right.
So advertisers just had this attitude of like,
who cares?
They have to sit through it, so we'll just make them sit through whatever we want them to.
Yeah.
The skip ad button changed all of that. It shifted the balance of power from the advertisers to the viewers so that the viewers could say, I get to choose what I interact with, which now means that the advertisers have to think and act differently.
Yeah.
They have to actually give something that provides value to the viewer. I now have to put a smile on your face.
Right.
I have to give you something to talk about, something to share with your friends.
In a weird way, you kind of like decentralize the monopoly of advertisers and like their mindsets.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
So that was like this genesis moment. And of course, if you fast forward to Facebook and Instagram and everything, it's different now, but the same principle holds. If I don't give you something of value, you're just going to keep swiping, right? You're going to skip right past it. And so built so deeply into our DNA is this respect for the viewer that we know that everything that we put out, we have to add value for the viewer. We have to give you something to smile about, talk about, share, comment, etc. And so from day one, that's what we had in mind of what we were building for. And so if you look back at our ads, they're just as focused on giving the viewer a great experience as they are selling a product for the company behind them.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
And it took several years to really understand the impact, but now looking back, we're 8 and change years old. We're coming up on 9 years old. In that time, we've helped grow 7 unicorns.
Yeah.
Like $7 billion businesses.
So
and then lots of others that, never made unicorn status, but they still grew by
leaps and bounds, man.
Yeah. Many, many multiples. In fact, a venture capitalist was analyzing our portfolio and he looked at it and he ran the numbers, and 80% of our clients that do the Harmon Brothers hero campaigns, they 2x their business, and 40% 10x their business. And so, the opportunity to work side by side with these entrepreneurs over the years who are just like world-class, world-changing entrepreneurs who are doing so much good for the world. And then we get to go side by side with them and help them tell their stories in a way that just grows their business like crazy. It's been such a privilege, such an honor.
Man, that's so awesome, dude. And the thing is like, it's such an exciting thing to make make things come alive, and you've done this like not just with like commercials, but you've also done this with movies, with shows. I mean, the Chosen was like a product of Angel Studios, Angel, right? And then and now Tuttle Twins as well. Now I know that since the beginning of Harmon Brothers to now, like there have been some new changes and different focuses and stuff like that. One of them was like Harmon Brothers University for a little bit of time, and now we're talking about like creating more shows. So walk me down that a little bit. Like, so what's Harmon Brothers doing right now?
Yeah, great question. So Harmon Brothers University was actually just an effort to build training courses for our own people because we were growing and we needed to transfer knowledge from one person to the next.
Of course.
And at the same time we were doing that, we were having over 100 companies per month reach out to us saying, can you help us? And obviously we can't help that.
Everybody.
Yeah. And so we were like, well, let's at least open up our training courses so that, we can't help everyone, but that way we can at least help way more people. So I wouldn't say that Harmon Brothers University has been like
this huge focus.
Yeah, like our core strategy, right, other than making sure that we're training our team really, really well. But on the entertainment side of it, where yes, we are making right now we're making a TV show. Our first one is called The Tuttle Twins, based on a book series by Connor Boyack that's sold over 4 million copies. It focuses on teaching kids the principles of freedom, principles of economics, golden rule, lots of these principles that sometimes are not, actually oftentimes are not well taught, in schools and stuff. And so there's not great ways for kids to get this knowledge elsewhere. So that show, I would say, like, imagine Magic School Bus and The Simpsons having a baby.
Yes.
And that's kind of what you end up with, where it's like, it's very educational, very family friendly, like Magic School Bus, but it's also very funny.
Yes.
Like Simpsons. You look at all of our ad campaigns, that have made people laugh for years and years and years. We've done that using world-class comedians who are able to write very intelligent humor that, in the case of Tuttle Twins, we're writing the humor at 2 levels. We're writing it for adults and we're writing it for kids.
Yes.
So you can watch it as a family and really enjoy it.
And I have like such an emotional tie with that because a couple reasons.
You voiced a character.
I voiced a character. I was the voice of Gandhi on Tuttle Twins, which was awesome. And hopefully either Gandhi comes back or a different character comes back that I can voice some more. But I really enjoyed it because I don't get the opportunity to voice a lot of characters, but I have in the past, and it's been super fun. So first off, thank you so much for even letting me be a part of it. And then Connor's a great friend. We were BYU roommates, and so to see him go from just like the goofy kids that we were to now being this author of like these book series that have just killed it. It's just amazing. It's so awesome.
Yeah,
to
he's
see
an
it.
incredibly talented guy.
He really is,
and hardworking. Yes,
he really is. And sometimes I'm like, dude, when do you sleep? And I don't know if he does. But he's a great guy. So what else is next? What do you guys have other shows
So
doing?
One of the super cool things about what's happening like industry wide right now.
Yeah.
This is just a little bit of a side tangent, but I'll tie it back in. One of the buzzwords out there right now is Web3, right?
I've never heard of this. I honestly don't even know what this is.
You haven't heard Web3? Okay,
no, tell me.
So way back in like I want to say it was like 04 to 07 range, like Web 2.0 was the buzzword. And so that basically meant that websites went from Web 1.0, which was like static websites where you just put information up on a website, to Web 2.0 was this shift to websites that were now interactive.
Right.
And so that was like the birth of MySpace and later, Facebook and so on. It's no longer this static website that just has information up there. It's now this dynamic website.
You're clicking, you're interacting.
You're interacting with it, contributing content into it, getting content back out of it, et cetera, et cetera. Well, over, let's say the past year, 18 months, maybe 24 months, I don't know, this kind of new term has really started to come on where people are calling it Web3. And in fact, Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook even went so far as to try to define Web3 as the metaverse.
Okay.
And he renamed his company Meta, and he's arguing that, you know, the future of the internet, Web3, is metaverse. Well, Jeff Harmon, he argues that that's just straight up not the case at all. He argues that Web3 is ownership. And so if you think about, you know, the past decade and a half of social media and you know, all these amazing inventions that have happened and that have changed the world in huge ways, from YouTube to Facebook to Instagram to TikTok, you name it, we have no ownership in any of those. As users, there's no ownership there. We're
contributing to maybe content on it, but we don't own a piece of the pie or whatever.
Exactly. And so Jeff Harmon's argument is that Web3 is actually this shift to where ownership is going to move from these centralized points into these decentralized environments where people can own their own whatever. Cryptocurrency is a great example of this, where, you know, you have centralized banks and you know, fiat currencies that belong to a country, et cetera, et cetera. Cryptocurrency is coming along and saying, we're going to decentralize that, and the ownership is going to be spread across the masses.
Right.
Angel Studios is doing the same thing for entertainment, saying that historically entertainment has been this massively centralized industry where a few power players have all the control, all the power, they control the distribution, they control what gets made, et cetera, et cetera. And Angel Studios is coming along and saying, let's decentralize that and shift ownership to the masses.
Okay.
So now it's the masses who get to choose what gets made,
right? What
gets financed. The masses get a voice in how it gets made, and then the masses get to participate in the distribution of that content. Yeah. And so, you know, the kind of the first big hit was Dry Bar Comedy.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, one of the fastest growing comedy brands on earth. It's getting over 1 billion views per year. It's
insane.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Next came The Chosen. Off the charts smash hit success. You go look at imdb.com. It's tracking to be the highest rated show of all time on IMDb.
It's so wild.
Same thing. Go to Rotten Tomatoes. It's like a 99 or 100% or something like that on Rotten Tomatoes. So really, really good show. But the whole model behind it was distributed, where it was financed by the crowd. The crowd got to participate in the creation of it. And then it was distributed for free to the crowd in this pay it forward model, where you get to watch it for free. And then if you enjoy it, you can pay so that somebody else can watch it for free.
Right.
And it's blown up. It's been viewed, I don't even remember the last count. I heard like 350 million times or something like that.
That's insane.
Generating plenty of revenue to finance future seasons of the show, and, you know, hopefully eventually it'll be able to pay back its original investors and everything. Smash hit success. So circling back to your question of, you know, what's next for Harmon Brothers, the Tuttle Twins followed in those same footsteps, like The Chosen. It was financed by the crowd helps create it, and then the crowd helps distribute it, and it's owned by the crowd. So we're following two paths. One where we're helping other content creators successfully raise from the crowd. So there's several other shows like Wing Feather Saga,
right?
Riot in the Dance, David. These are shows that are coming down the pipeline that people are going to be able to watch on Angel Studios in the not too distant future. But they had to raise several millions of dollars from the crowd in order to make those shows a reality.
I'll tell you, it's hard. It's hard to do. I mean, I had my own show and it didn't land, you know, because we didn't have like the marketing infrastructure to do it. So I love that you guys are doing that.
Yeah. So that's one of our focuses at Harmon Brothers, is helping these creators take their ideas to the crowd and be able to sell them to the crowd in a way that the crowd's willing to open up their wallets and say, yeah, we want to make this show a reality. So that's one focus. And then the other focus is on creating our own shows and our own content, because we believe that to be the world's best advertisers, we also have to be world-class storytellers and entertainers. And we would love to follow in the footsteps of like Pixar, for instance. Yeah. They started in advertising. Not a ton of people know that, but if you go to YouTube and look up Pixar's advertising reel, you'll see a whole bunch of advertisements from the early 90s. Wow. Where they were using computer animation for these advertisements. I think Gummy Bears was one of them, the dancing little gummy bears. That was Pixar.
Okay.
And there have been other great filmmakers who started in ads as well. Ridley Scott, he made the original Apple ad.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that 1984 Apple ad. That was Ridley Scott. Michael Bay did a famous milk commercial.
Yeah. Got Milk.
Yeah.
A lot of it was his,
So we want to follow in similar footsteps where we've become world-class advertisers. Now we want to make sure that we're becoming world-class storytellers and entertainers in addition to that.
That's awesome, man. And I'd love to like talk to you guys on that front on a separate note later on. But like, it seems like you have this power and you have this voice, and it's just awesome that you're moving that energy towards it and making things happen. It's just very exciting to see. I want to shift the podcast a little bit, ask a different question. The Lemonade Stand Stories podcast, one of the reasons why I love having people on here is, first off, hearing their stories, but also in order to make lemonade, you have to have lemons, right? Mm-hmm. So in life, things don't go perfectly, and things change all the time. So were there ever times in your life that you're like, oh my gosh, this is a severe lemon. How the heck are we going to get out of this one? And then you were able to switch it. I know Angel Studios had their lemons for sure, Huge ones. Huge lemons. But what about for yourself or Harmon Brothers or even you personally? Was there ever a moment in your own life where you're like, oh my gosh, this is a lemon. What am I going to do? And it could have been a while ago, but I'd be curious to hear.
So I glazed over the story of how we did Poo-Pourri and then VidAngel, and then we had to go get some side work to keep the lights on, keep food on the table. The part that I glazed over was that when we made that decision and we started pounding the pavement to say, hey, we're here, we can do some work for you. It wasn't like this instant flip the switch, work is flowing in the doors. In fact, I had to sign up to drive Uber. I was the third Uber driver in Provo.
Okay. Yeah, I love this so much. Yeah.
And for context here, a year prior, I had been in Washington, D.C. at Deloitte in a fairly
secure,
really good job, serving high-profile clients. We had a nice little house in the suburbs of Virginia. Yeah. Picket fence, nice yard, our 2 kids.
Life was good.
Yeah, life was really good. That was 1 year prior. Fast forward 1 year, we had just done Poo-Pourri. It had blown up. It was this massive success. We're trying to get VidAngel off the ground. And at this point, I'm broke.
Yeah.
Like I've got a wife and 2 kids, and I'm going, I don't even know how we're going to put food on the table. So I'm trying to drive Uber, but in Provo, like the demand for Uber just was not there yet. Like I'd get a handful of rides per day, and sometimes I'd have to drive further to pick them up than what the actual fare was. And so I quickly saw, this isn't even going to bridge the gap. And so I went and started pouring concrete, which is something that I had done back in college. And so it was a skill that I had and that I knew. And so I was grateful I could fall back on it. But still, to go once again from Deloitte to Poo-Pourri to VidAngel, and now I'm pouring concrete on a concrete crew during the day, and then in the evenings I'm trying to drum up
some business.
Some business. That was as lemons go. I don't want to sit here and act like that lemon was, was, some catastrophic, horrible thing that I passed through, because everyone has lemons. Let's be honest, a lot of lemons are a lot worse than that. But in that case, it was scary, it was hard being in this position where I really pride myself on being a great provider. And now all of a sudden I'm struggling to provide.
Yeah.
I also had a lot of empathy for my wife, who had to be really patient through that process. And she was like, she knew the longer term vision.
Yeah.
And I remember both Daniel Harmon and I like wondering, like, are we gonna have to go get jobs? Like, do we got to go out and get a normal job,
like a 9 to 5?
A safe job? And he was able to get some side work doing some web design for some people, and I did concrete, and that held us over until we were able to dive into some of those bigger projects like Squatty Potty, for instance.
It's interesting. So I don't know if you knew this. I lived in LA for about 9 years. I when I decided I wanted to act, because I graduated BYU in 2006, and then right when I graduated, and the thing was, in 2004 I decided I want to be an actor. So I was like, I just need to get a degree. So whatever is going to give me the quickest degree, I need to get out of here so I can go pursue this dream.
Yep.
So I got out in 2006 and then went to be an actor, and I saw some success, some moderate success in Utah. But one of the last movies I did, the actors in Utah anyway, the actors were all LA based except for me. And they're like, Sharon, what are you doing in Utah? Like, opportunities for you as an Indian actor, they're not going to be that many in Utah. At the time, there just wasn't any. So they're like, why don't you come to LA and we'll help you? So I went to LA, and it was awesome. Like, I met some really cool people, and I got to network a lot. I got to meet had agents and all this stuff. But dude, I was struggling with cash, and I was a Lyft driver. And Lyft had just barely come to LA. So I was one of the first few Lyft drivers. And at the time,
and that's an expensive place to live.
It's an expensive place to live. And when they first started Lyft, they actually had enough money that they paid everyone an hourly rate.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was actually an hourly rate, and then you'd get commissions as well. So I was like, this is great. This is, it's paying me hourly. And then they switched over to just straight up commissions. And then there were so many Lyft drivers on the road, in LA especially, that we hardly were making anything, or I hardly was making anything. And my car was like falling apart at the seams because like I was driving so much, and it was scary stuff, man. And I remember one of like the most humbling moments, kind of like that, was I was on the show Silicon Valley, and that was like it was a really cool high, right? I was like, oh my gosh, like this is fun. I get to act with some really cool people. But I remember even while I was acting, I had this thought in my head, oh my gosh, when I wrap from this really high, I'm going to go back home and drive for Lyft. Like, it was just like this moment of utter realization of like, wow, it's a very interesting thing. And not that being a Lyft driver is bad or anything. It was just like that moment of, in a way I like to like say, hey, you know what? For me, I always look at it as like, you need God, and you need him in your life. And sometimes he allows you to go through these like incredibly humbling moments before like the huge abundant success. So he can kind of like help your own heart out and make sure that you're in the right path before you get all the success. You know what I mean? I've seen people that have like had a lot of success, but their heart wasn't in the right place, and it implodes on them. And I think it's, for me, looking at your guys' success, like I don't know the whole team at Harmon Brothers, but I know you, I know Daniel, and then of course Jeff and Neil are good friends, and I just think like you guys have all in your own way been through your own refiner's fire, right? To help pave your way so that when you do have the more high level success, you can also be ready for that and kind of, take it all with a grain of salt. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I personally believe that trials and difficulty are easier to bring a team together than success.
Oh, yeah.
My experience has been that success can more quickly tear a team apart than hardship. And so to your point, I feel like if a team has gone through hardship and then through success, their chances of
longevity and staying together.
Yeah. So sometimes when I look at like Dude Perfect, for instance, those guys have been so wildly successful for so many years, and they've managed to keep their team together. And I'm sure that behind the scenes they have their disagreements, and feathers get ruffled and feelings get hurt and stuff. That's inevitable, right? But the fact that they've made it this long and the team hasn't imploded on itself, and they haven't just had like this falling out with that level of success, like I tip my hat to those guys, because that I know that's not easy. Yeah. And so I'm guessing that those guys, it's probably not super well known, but they've probably had some refiner's fire type moments.
Oh, for sure.
That have galvanized them together as a team.
Have you heard of the YouTube channel Cinema Therapy? Have you heard of them yet?
No, I'm not familiar with them.
They're two guys. I actually had them on the podcast. One of them is an actual therapist, and the other one's a filmmaker. And they get together and they analyze films, and then they talk about the principles they learn from them and everything. And they went from 0 subscribers to now they're almost 1 million subscribers, and they're killing it. And they're like some of my best friends. And it's interesting because before they started all of this, I got to see firsthand the refiner's fire that they personally would go through, all the different struggles that they had trying to make different things work, and things would work and they would stop. They'd get going and then they'd stop. And then when they finally got together with this idea, and then to see it succeed, it was just like, wow, what a cool thing that the refiner's fire can really bring people together and make people succeed. I think it's a powerful thing. Now, one of the other things I love to ask my guests is, what is their source of joy? So Benton, what is the source of your joy right now?
I have several sources of joy. My family, obviously. We just had baby number 5.
Nice, dude. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So
and how old are they all ranging?
So my oldest is 13, and then down to 6. So our first 4 kids, we thought we were done. Okay. So I guess he's not quite 6. He's 5. Yeah. And we thought our family was complete, but then we got a surprise number 5 little caboose joining the family. Yeah, that's great. And she was born 2 weeks ago.
Are you serious? 2 weeks ago?
Yeah. So we're at that stage where we're not sleeping much.
Yeah, of course. I was going to ask you about your sleep, but
I remember at some point I remember my dad saying something to the effect of, "There's no." The closest thing we have to a window to heaven is looking into a baby's eyes. And that's just kind of fresh in my mind, because right now I've spent a lot of time holding my newborn baby. And I think there's a lot of truth in what he said, like to just look into a baby's eyes and just see the purity and the innocence. I feel like in those moments, it's a great reset for perspective in terms of what really matters. So yeah, family's right there at the top. And then, man, the outdoors, the mountains.
Yeah, I love that, dude. Yes.
That's my place of peace. It's my place of joy. It's my place of recreation. I just
that was one of the reasons I moved back to Utah, honestly.
Me too.
I was like, I love nature so much. And if you could just put me in the mountains for a while, I'm like the happiest person on earth. I love it so much. I love hiking. I just love open spaces in nature where no one else is around, and just kind of soaking in the life that is there. And, I don't have kids myself. I'm not married, but I have my sister, and she's got 2 little boys that are my nephews, and my oldest nephew is just over 2, and the other one is like 8 months or so. Mm-hmm. And dude, I was just hanging out with them over the weekend, and like you said, looking in their eyes and like seeing the life they have and the energy that they have, you just feel so excited for them, and you're so excited. It's almost like you get to start over life and relive life through their eyes.
Yes.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes. I would say that I have more joy in my kids' tiny accomplishments than I get in my own big accomplishments.
Oh, I love that.
And it's shocking how a kid taking his first step.
Yes. Yeah.
Or you know, having some my boy that's going into 7th grade went and tried out to skip beginner orchestra and go straight into intermediate orchestra.
Was he a violin player or was he
cello?
Okay, good. All right. Just kidding.
And and just to see like the pride in his eyes and see how he knew that he took on something hard and he accomplished it. Like watching that, it genuinely, I get more joy from those type of moments than even when, you know, you look at some of our smash hit campaigns and you know, this success or that. It's, I don't know what it is, reliving life through your kids' eyes is an like, amazing experience.
That's so perfect, man. I love that so much. I love that you said that. I think I was having a conversation with a friend of mine and I said, you know, the Lord often gives me like an analogy about perspective and value. And what he says is, hey, whatever you think is valuable, take it with you to a deserted island and then see if it's still valuable. And then I'm like, oh, that's so good. And so you take money. If you take money to a deserted island, it immediately becomes completely irrelevant. Yeah. Like, why do you need it? Unless you have actual cash and you can burn it for fire, you know? And even that's going to go away pretty quick. Yep. So money becomes completely irrelevant. And the ideas of success, the ideas of fame, the ideas of all of that stuff, when you go to a desert island, becomes irrelevant. Like, who cares? You're by yourself on an island, right? But if you could take your child with you, if you could take a loved one with you, and you can share the experience of maybe this island together, like how much value is that, right? And so I love that perspective because it quickly like helps me to reset my mind and think, okay, is that valuable or no? Oh, I shouldn't even focus on that. Why do I need to focus on that? It doesn't bring anything to me, right? So I love that the value that you get from your kids' success is like more joyous to your soul than your personal success in career and the personal accomplishments of like Tuttle Twins or whatnot, right? And I wish more people could have that type of perspective. I think a lot of times we get too stuck on just our own accomplishments. How did you get to this point though, of realizing that like this feels better and this is more exciting to you?
Well, you know, let's be honest. I don't want to try to position this as if I've like arrived at a point where, you know, I've figured out the
magic.
Yeah. The right balance and the right focus and all that thing. Cause, you know, I'll be honest, like I just like everyone else, I'm constantly trying to battle around how to balance my life. Right. Career does tend to, you know, monopolize focus and sometimes other probably more important things take a back seat, like faith and family and health, you know, some of these things. And so while I can sit here and say that, like, you know, I get the most joy from my family and the most fulfillment from my family and my faith matters to me and my health matters to me. If I actually look at my calendar and say, you know, where
am I allocating most of my time, right? Yeah.
I think my calendar would tell you a
different story.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I don't want to pretend like, you know, I have the answers or I've arrived, because it's a constant, you know, it's a constant battle that I'm fighting. I will say that, you know, with our surprise little number 5 baby joining the family, I realized when I looked back over, you know, almost decade and a half of our other kids being born and, you know, getting them through the diaper phases and all that stuff. When I look back, if I'm being honest with myself, I kind of just survived it. It was like so intense trying to build a career, build a company, make my clients successful, make my partners successful, so on and so forth, that the like fatherhood side of it, if I'm being honest, I just kind of survived it. And I look back and it's kind of foggy, where it's like, oh man, like that, it's all kind of a haze. It's all kind of a blur, where I was just tired. I was exhausted. I was stressed. I made it through, but I don't look back at that time as like, oh man, I thrived.
Yeah.
You know, I
was incredibly clear memories.
Yeah. Know? Or even like, I did amazing in my role as a dad or anything. And so I feel like with our little caboose joining the family, I want to approach it differently this time, and I want to have a different experience where
I love that.
I'm more in the moment and I'm more present and enjoying the
little things all along the way.
Yeah, as opposed to just kind of like buckle my seatbelt, grit my teeth, and get through it.
You know, it's interesting you say that. Although I've never experienced a family life like my own family that I'm creating. I remember when I was at BYU going to school, and truth be told, like, I was a good student, but that doesn't mean that I really, really absorbed a lot of information. I think I just knew how to get good grades and get A's and stuff. And I would study all the time. But during that time, I remember I had a lot of friends that were like, hey, Sharon, let's go do this, let's go do that. And I would forego it. I'm like, no, you guys, I have to focus. I got to study. And you know what? BYU is a blur to me. I really don't remember much of anything, to tell you the truth. And I regret like not spending those moments with my friends and going in nature as I wish I had. And so I said, okay, that's it. After I graduated, I said, all right, I'm going to refocus my life a little bit, and I'm going to be a little bit more present and enjoy the moments. And now I have a lot more clear pictures and memories of certain things that have happened that I'm so grateful for. And usually a lot of them involve being in nature with some of my loved ones. Mm-hmm. So I love that, like, you know, weird way you're kind of resetting and saying, okay, with this last one, we're going to make sure that I'm going to be a little bit more present and all that stuff. So I just have 2 more questions for you.
Okay.
What is your greatest fear right now?
I won't position this as my greatest fear, but I'll position it as a pretty big fear that you know is entering my mind on a regular basis. I suspect that in the not too distant future, we as a society and as a world are going to go through some pretty
challenging times. Yeah,
some pretty earth-shaking, you know, changes. And, you know, if I was to be, you know, more specific around some of them, we talked earlier about, you know, this shift from centralized to decentralized. And so, for example, as money systems, as the power is pulled away from central power to decentralized power, those transitions are not likely to be smooth. Transitions are.
There's going to be some bumps.
Yeah. And a lot of turmoil along the way. Another part of the economy that is very, very centralized that I believe in the not too distant future will have a shift back towards decentralization is actually farming and food production.
Yeah.
You know, I talked about how my family experienced in the 80s and 90s when this very decentralized community of farmers went through this consolidation process where only the farmers who got huge survived and all the small little food producers went out of business. The problem with that level of centralization is it makes for very fragile systems.
Yeah.
So, for example, in the past couple of months,
farms have been burning down, I feel, right?
So there's been bird flu.
Yes.
Which, because so many bird produce turkey and chicken, they're raising hundreds of thousands of birds all in the same spot. And so that becomes very fragile to something like the bird flu comes along.
And then wipes them all out.
Wipes them out. So they've had to kill millions and millions of birds. I don't know what the count is up to.
Yeah, it was like 37, 40 something million.
Yeah, crazy. Yeah. Which means now we're probably right around the corner from very high prices in chickens and eggs, probably shortages in those things.
You know, it's interesting. I'm following this actually very, very closely as well. And a friend of mine was telling me that she went to the grocery store and they had told her, hey, get some eggs now, because we're actually going to run out of supplies of eggs. And I'm like, that's pretty intense stuff, you know, to have shortages of some of these basic necessities. So
there's a book by Michael Pollan called The Omnivores Dilemma. Super good book. I highly recommend it for anyone who hasn't read it. But one of the things that you kind of wrap your head around in reading that book is how much our food system is based on corn. And, anything from the beef that you eat is probably fed corn to the French fries that you eat are probably fried in corn oil, to the gasoline that you burn in your car has corn ethanol mixed into it. Like corn is like right at the middle of
all the things.
Yeah. And the irony is that nationwide, I don't remember the statistic. It's something like 95% of the corn grown comes from like 5 different breeds or strands of corn. And so in the same way that, those chickens are very vulnerable, very fragile to, some catastrophic shock, corn's the same way. Like if you had a catastrophic event, be it drought, be it some sort of disease that wiped out a huge portion of the corn crop, that would be a massive, massive shock to our whole entire food system. And we would end up in a situation where there's food shortages, crazy high prices in food, that sort of thing. And so I don't mean to sound all like doomsday about it, because I actually am really hopeful looking towards the future in the same way that decentralized money is really taking hold. The same thing is happening in farming. There's a movement back towards decentralization, and this belief that the only way we can feed the masses is through industrialized, food production. That's being proven wrong. Like you can actually get per acre yields on very natural, sustainable, decentralized farming methods, even better than you can through these like highly industrialized processes. And so they're proving, we can feed the world in decentralized ways. But the economy is going to have to go through this shift where it's moving back towards that. And once again, that shift is not going to be a smooth one.
It's the shift that's kind of scary, right? Yeah. It's interesting that you say this, because I was having some conversations with people about preparedness. And we've had several meetings. And one of the meetings we were talking about, like some people have bought their own farms. Some people have their own greenhouses. And we talk about, okay, how do we plant this? How do we, make this all happen? And I didn't grow up on a farm. I don't know much about it, but thankfully I'm around people that know how to do all that stuff. So I'm learning from them. But it's
5 years ago, those people used to sound like psychos, by the way. Like preppers were nuts, right?
Yeah.
But the past couple of years have shown us how fragile systems are.
Well, I mean, if you said to me in the beginning of 2020, a pandemic is going to come that's going to shut the world down, I'm like, yeah, right. Like that just sounds insane. And yet we went through that, right? And so it just makes me realize, if that happened, what else could happen, right? And it's not about me being afraid. It's just about realizing, hey, that really did happen. We're all witnesses to that are alive. So, and it's interesting too, because COVID, it took, like, a lot of my friends died. I had a lot of people close to me pass away from it. And so it made me realize, like, eye opens. I'm like, okay, things could change very quickly on a dime. So last question I have for you is, knowing all that you know right now, all this, the success you've had and the challenging times, and the fact that we may be facing some societal changes and shifting that could cause bumps along the way, if this current Benton was able to build a time machine and go back to the 17-year-old or 18-year-old that left high school, what would you tell him?
I don't know, it's probably stupid, but like, I don't think I would. I wouldn't say anything to my 17-year-old self. I think the journey is what it's all about. Like,
right.
Even if I had the opportunity to tell myself something that could have helped me avoid, a lemon.
Yeah.
Would I? I don't think I would, because those lemons end up making me who I am today.
Right.
And without having those lemons, then who would I be?
Who would you be?
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I love that, man. And I've actually had some guests say the same thing. They're like, we wouldn't say anything. And I think that's actually a great answer, because why rob yourself of the experience of life? Sometimes you just have to like let yourself go through it all, right? A lot of times, if I was to look back on my own life and think, okay, what would I tell myself? I don't necessarily know if I would tell myself anything other than I would just give myself more grace. I think I beat myself up way too much, and that, you know, kind of stemmed from my own upbringing, from my Indian parents and their ideologies and all that stuff. And I think like now that I look back on my life and realize, wow, there's like a lot of peace and there's a lot of joy and hope right now that I have. And I look at the future very optimistically, knowing that things are probably going to shift and change and all that stuff. But I still look at it very optimistically because I'm very excited for what the changes will bring. And I think I have a feeling that it's going to bring a lot more togetherness, even though that togetherness could look a lot different than what it currently looks like right now. And maybe we'll probably have to forego some of the comforts that we are in right now, and maybe we'll get in some new comforts. Who knows, right? But I'm very excited about it. Anyway, Benton, I'm so grateful that you like took the time, man. I know you're like a newborn, and you came on the podcast. So really, thank you so much. Pleasure being here. Seriously. Any last words before we wrap up?
No, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, awesome, man. Well, thank you so much, and we'll chat with you soon. Okay.
All right. Thanks, Sharon.
Yep. Thanks so much for listening to the Lemonade Stand podcast, and we hope you enjoyed this episode. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you use to be alerted when we release new episodes. We'd also love to hear your feedback in the reviews, and if you or someone you know has an awesome Lemonade Stand story, please reach out to us on social media and let us know. Thanks so much, and have a great day.